Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Healing with Horses, the #1 podcast for equine guided therapy. I'm one of the hosts, Jacci Jones, and I'm a psychotherapist trained in transactional analysis.
And I'm Julie Lewis, the equine facilitator, and together we are going to guide you through the world of equine guided therapy. Don't forget to click subscribe to be notified of our latest podcast episodes. And if you get any value from this podcast, please support us by leaving a review. It really will help us out and motivate us to keep making these podcasts.
You can connect with us on social media at Equine Guided Therapy and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get regular videos all around equine guided therapy and mental health. We hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome back to episode number 2 of Healing with Horses, Equine Guided Therapy, with myself, Jacci Jones, and the wonderful Julie Lewis. And what we're going to be talking about in this episode is exploring the healing connection between horses and humans. We are. That's what we're going to do in this session.
And that's actually supposedly what keeps me sane. But there are people that would actually give some kind of conflict back to that, Jack.
Yeah, no, it definitely keeps you sane. Just think how bad you'd be if you weren't doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and for some strange reason, I don't know why, we might have mentioned this in the last podcast that we've done, but I've written down partner in crime, and I don't know what that's got to do with anything. No idea. But anyway,
Somebody would have said it's a crime to let us two do anything together. I'm sure there are people that would say that.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned this when we did our introductions, but we've known each other for over 30 years.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day and shocked us because we'd said, over 20 years. And then we both looked at each other and thought, hang on a minute, look at the age of our children. It's a lot longer than that.
A lot longer than that. It's scary how long we've actually known each other. Yeah. It is. It's really scary. But we've been through lots of ups and downs together. And for you, the horses have been a constant throughout.
Yeah.
I've dipped in and out, much to your dismay.
Yeah, you just couldn't take it, could you? No matter how much.
No, I like being around horses. I like the smell of horses, and I love being on the ground with horses. But the riding horses is not for me. Yeah,
you gave me a lot of entertainment, though, Jack.
Over the years, lots of entertainment, and I've tried, and I've done courses, and I did my level 1, whatever it was that I did, and I passed it. Surprisingly, I did a grassland management course and did all of that, but I still didn't.
Totally, when you told me.
I still didn't like it. I much prefer working with humans than the horses. So we're going to be talking about the healing connection, and you touched on it last time, and I think it's amazing that electromagnetic field that horses have. Evidently, it's 5 times the size of ours, and when we step into that and lower our energy to the same as the horse, because the horse's breathing is a lot slower than ours, and when we connect with that, magic happens.
It does, and it's unconscious a lot of the time. People don't realize it. So lots of horse owners will do this unconsciously. They'll have a heck of a day at work, they'll get back to do the horses, and then suddenly they feel great. And it will be similar to people who have the hobby of going to the gym, and they'll go and have a workout at the gym. That's how it de-stresses them. Yeah. And that's their thing. And it's like that with horses, but it's a very much more conscious effort when you're going to a gym, or you're going for a swim, or you're going for a bike ride. And it's a very much more individual thing. Whereas the actual electromagnetic field that you will feel within a horse, or you may not even feel it, it's very much more a subconscious thing. But it's also a two-way thing. So the horses will feel it too. So you might have, for example, the steadiest Neddy in the world, who is your pride and joy, who you love to bits, and you have lovely, lovely times on, and you don't really stress him or her out at all generally. But then there might be the one week, day, or month that you are really, really struggling at work or at home or wherever, or just with yourself, just, generally having a downtime, because we're humans. And you will perhaps not notice at the time, but when you've come through it and you look back at it, think, yeah, do you know what? Barney was a devil. He wouldn't let me catch him that week. He was an absolute nightmare. He was awful in the stables with me. He kept trying to nudge me out of the way, or he'd turn his bottom on me, and he wouldn't take his bridle. He hated me when I was brushing him, and all the little things that you take for granted with your horses as normal. Some horses do that as normal, But there are other horses, like I say, let's take little Barney as our client and horse. And Barney is normally the nice little gem that he is. But when Sally, who owns Barney, looks back on her rough week that she'd had at work and all the rest of it and thinks, yeah, I had a rough time with Barney that week too. Everything was going wrong. And that is part and parcel of it, that she would have been giving off so much tension through that time. And if she was rushing and not actually taking in the energy that Barney could give back to her, then he would have thrown it back in her face almost.
Yeah.
So it's not always, when people think, oh yes, it's great, it's this, it's relaxing, you have to make a conscious effort to make that connection. So if she's not accepting his connection, Barney would have been so pleased to see Sally turn up on a daily basis, I'm sure, every day to see him. But if she's not showing that to him, even unconsciously showing it to him with a smile, a relaxed shoulder, anything like that, then he's going to respond in the same way. And this is, you talked about it in your bit about the mirroring, horses our behavior and how that actually works. And so it's only maybe when it's pointed out to Sally that she would look back and think, do you know what, yeah, he was pretty iffy that week. He was a bit numpty in the stable. He was a bit narky when I was riding him, and all those little things. So what we're doing with our horses within equine guided therapy is encouraging you to connect and make that connection and notice it, because you know, we can facilitate that with the horses. I can help you facilitate that with the horses. And then obviously Jackie will explore, you'll explore the emotional, the mental and all the well-being side of things as well. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful way of making sure that everybody is getting the most out of their horses and the most out of their equine experience if you're a horse owner. Now I'm talking now as though it's just horse people. And I think when we started talking about this a long time ago, I was kind of, nah, horse people won't be interested in this because
they're around horses every day. They're not going to get anything out of this.
they're not going to notice it. It's not going to be a new thing. And yet our pilot groups were horse owners and non-horse owners. And the horse owners got as much, if not more, because they suddenly realised what they'd been missing, what was on their doorstep that was there for them to enjoy, that, you know, that they just hadn't been using to its full advantage. It's like, you know, I don't know, having a balloon that needs to be blown up and you're only ever going into it, when actually get a big breath, blow into it. And
I think for me, one of the things, and I can remember, I don't know whether it was when I was doing my psychotherapy training or whether it was Reiki, but we did an exercise about our own personal space and it is our electromagnetic field. And somebody was sat on a chair with their eyes closed, and you know, another person had to walk towards them one step at a time slowly. And even though their eyes were closed, we could sense when they were coming into our personal space, if that makes sense. And some people, you know, they could get right up close to somebody before it felt like they were imposing on us, whereas other ones, you know, they could have been 5 foot away. So our own personal space is different. So when we connect with the horse and we step into their energy field and we've got our energy field, it really does make us connect, especially when we drop our breathing down to the level of the horse and everything. You know, we are all just energy. When you think about it, you know, we're just a load of atoms that are bouncing around, and that makes energy. And we have positive energy and negative energy. And I think what you're touching on when you're saying about, you know, Sally and Barney and not realizing what's there is when we're not paying attention to the energy that we're taking into the stable or when we're riding. I can remember my daughter had a pony called Jack who was a little shit at times.
No, he wasn't.
We couldn't get him in the stable. He had laminitis, but he would escape out of his stable and we couldn't catch him in the field and everything. And I would be so stressed with him sometimes trying to catch him. And he knew that he would play me like a fool in that field. Whereas if I walked away from him, he would come up behind me. And as soon as I turned to try and catch him, that'd be it, he'd be off again. And it was a game of cat and mouse. We used to play it all the time. But I was so frustrated. There was no way I was ever going to catch him.
It is funny though, and it's like we're talking about that with our own, even with other humans. I'm sure if we look back, we can always find, everybody can find a point in their life where there's somebody in a room, whether it's a classroom, a meeting room, and you think, oh my God, it's that woman or it's that guy. I can't bear them. I can't bear them. And you
Yeah,
know that they're stood behind you in the queue and you've been trying to avoid them all around the supermarket and then they end up behind you in the queue. And it is like you said, you can feel it. So
yeah,
it is exactly that physical thing. It's not just an energy that you think, oh, what did you say about the hairy fairy stuff or whatever? You know,
yeah, yeah.
it is a physical thing as well. You can actually physically feel it.
Absolutely. And you know, the connection, the horses can help us reduce our stress and anxiety levels just by you their energy. You know, they're very much in the moment. They're not. I don't know whether I've ever seen a horse get stressed. Do horses get stressed?
Yeah, horses do get stressed. Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
it's usually human led. Actually, 99% of the time, it will be human led. But obviously, nature, they're flight animals, so horses can be stressed by their environment. Um,
yeah. See, I see this different as in humans. It's kind of like it goes up, they run off, and then it drops back down again.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
they
again,
don't stay stressed. They're stressed in the moment, and as soon as the whatever it is has passed, the danger has passed, they go straight back down to normal and carry on regardless.
well, again, that's what that comes down to nature, doesn't it? You know, in days gone by or days of yore, however you want to use that phrase, they would disappear from whatever was causing them stress. Obviously, in this world where we keep horses and we keep them in their own fields or we keep them in paddocks or we keep them in stables, that stressful environment might be what is causing that horse to be stressed. And I have a classic example now on my yard. We had a little horse came to us as a livery, which means for those of you that aren't horsey, means it's being kept there and somebody's paying to keep it there and enjoy their own horse. Um, and she literally destroyed 3 stables, one
Wow.
after the other. And each time we moved, I thought, what's the heck's going on? You know, she destroyed the door on one, she destroyed the door on the next one, and then we moved it to the next one. She kicked the wall down, and I just was like, oh, what on earth? Like, right, well, the only stables left are the ones around the corner. She can go into those, which we put her in. And night one, boom, everything's quiet. This horse is there. And I don't get this. Anyway, by a few days later, the original boxes had been repaired, and we took her back. And sure enough, this mare is kicking the doors and banging and grumpy and just horrible, just horrible. Um, and I don't know why, but I thought, oh, do you know what? I can't live with this. We're too busy. Go back around the corner, then you can go around there and go back in that stable where I couldn't hear you. And it wasn't that I couldn't hear it; it's because she wasn't doing it.
Bless.
Yeah, just didn't like the environment that she was in there. She liked being facing the other way on in the other stables. Now, I have no explanation for that, but there is something in what's going on for her. But for her, that was stressful. And then we've looked at it further and realised that actually the difference between those boxes is actually the fact that the original ones were open over the top. So whilst no horse was going to come over a 12-foot wall or 15-foot wall, whatever it is, the fact that she could hear everything over there,
Right. So they were kind of connected, all the stables.
all that was open. Yeah,
Yeah,
over the top.
yeah.
So the walls went high. Now, in theory, that should have actually made her feel happier. There's loads of barns and stables now where horses have grids between them so they can see each other and they can virtually nuzzle each other through. She
Yeah.
hated that. Now, I've got other horses who would absolutely love that. There's a big thing about having mirrors in stables for horses because, as we've talked about before, they're herd animals and they don't like to be on their own. She obviously, somewhere in her history, she she didn't like the company of other horses. She likes to be secure in her own box. The box I moved her into was a secure box. There was no, the wall came up to the roof. So
Yeah.
if she wanted to interact with the other horses, she'd stick her head out of the stable door and interact. And to this day, that's where she lives. And we call that that row of stables, we do actually call on the yard the horstistic row because all 3 horses on that side all have these funny little quirks. But just like you and I, just like everybody else watching or listening, we all have our own little quirks. That mare just likes, if she was a human, you say she's one of these people that's very, very good in her own company. Likes her
Wow.
own company. She likes to choose when she socializes. If you see
You're a
some
bit
of
of an introvert then.
my filming when I'm showing some of the stuff that we show on Equine Guided Therapy, some of the little videos that I put on, you'll see it's Gypsy, and
Yeah.
you'll see Gypsy's out with the crowd. Other days, she'll squeal if they come within 6 feet of her, 6 meters of her actually. And she has definitely got her own little group that she likes to be around. So horses, herd animals, yeah, they are herd animals, but it's not just any old buddy in the herd.
Yeah.
And
Which
she
is the same as us, really.
and they can all feel it, and they've got all the other little weird things that they do, the little ear flick, the look, the flare of the nostril and everything else. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that when you said about stress, that was stressing her. It was stressing her to be in that environment where she obviously felt threatened that other horses could come over and get in her space.
Yeah.
So for her, yeah, when you say can horses feel stress, yes, they can. And that's just a little one. Some horses, any horse owner will tell you, some of their horses get stressed. You have some horses that don't travel very well in lorries and they get stressed over it and they get tummy ache and they get sweaty, all exhibiting all the same things that we humans exhibit, all these same kind of things, I can't say nausea, but they'll get tummy,
I think the difference for us as humans is that we predict the future.
Yeah.
Or try to predict the future. Do you know what I mean? If we've been in a stressful environment, or if we felt anxious once, then if ever we've got to go in that situation again, even if it's in a week's time or a month's time, we'll already be increasing our stress levels, worrying about it. Whereas I don't think horses do that. One, because they don't necessarily know what's coming because they're not in charge of it anymore. So they don't need to worry about it. But they're very much in the moment. If they don't like it in the moment type of thing.
So like you're saying with the travelling, if there were a horse that gets stressed and upset by travelling when they're in a lorry or a trailer or something like that, once that's over, for the rest of the week that they're living at home until they put on that trailer again, they're not going to be thinking about it. They live for what is happening to them there and then.
Yeah.
And if they're nicely kept and fed, watered and loved, generally they're pretty much happy.
Yeah, there's a brilliant book. I've got it somewhere, but I can't remember it, called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And it's a similar thing because they're not trying to predict the future. They're literally in the moment and they get stressed. And then as soon as the danger's over, they just go back down to base camp, if you will, and everything's fine again. But, there's so much that we can use. I don't like the word use horses because we're not using them. We're using
partnering them.
That's it. Yeah, we're connecting with them and doing that sort of thing, about building confidence and self-esteem. When we were doing those beta groups with people, there was a lady there that none of the horses, she didn't feel comfortable around the horses. Certain horses she would go to and other ones she didn't want to, and yet the ones that she didn't want to go to were the ones that opened up to her, and she ended up hugging them for ages. They were literally pulling her in closer. It was amazing to watch.
Yeah, it was like, come on, mate, it's all right. You come over. They will, and horses are great ones for seeking out. They're very, very sensory. They will seek out good company. It's almost, we talked about it. We touched on it last time with the dogs.
Good company, as in good vibrations, so to speak. That that song.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And I think I mentioned it in the last podcast we did, that you go and sit in a field and you won't be alone for long if there's horses in that field. It's very unsafe. If you don't know what you're doing, it's very unsafe. So I'm not advising anybody go wandering into people's fields and sit in their fields.
Exactly. Yes.
But as horse, a lot of horse people will have done that, particularly in the summer. What could be better? Sitting on the ground in the sunshine with that lovely noise around you of nothingness, just horse's breath.
Yeah. I think one of the things that always hits me when I see people around horses is that we've got to be authentic because they see right through us. Like everything nowadays on, I don't know, on Instagram and everything, it's all fake and you don't actually know what's real and what's not anymore.
Yeah.
In my mind, a horse can see straight through anything. If you go in that making out like you're not scared or fearful when you are, they'll sniff it out a mile off.
Yeah, and again, you've also got the same kind of thing again. If you're scared, they will feed off that. So what's there to be scared about? Why are you scared? What's going on? Why are you scared? And it's that mirroring that you were talking about, the mirroring of the energy in there.
Yeah.
So again, this is why we have equine guided therapy, because we're going to guide you, the people that are scared and anxious, rather than going into the stable and making the horse anxious. You will be explaining to people when they have their sessions that this is how you're going to handle this now, because you've come in here to an unanxious horse feeling anxious. So rather than feed that to the horse and him mirror it, then we work together, making sure that you make that connection with the horse, because the horse isn't anxious. So rather than you being up here and anxious, can you see my hands? Being up here and anxious, and little Barney say here, chilling and going, wow, she's anxious. And what we're doing with our guided therapy is saying, no, look, here's Barney, you're anxious. Come on, let's connect with Barney here, because then that's where you're going to get the most out of your therapy. And that's where you're going to make that connection and get that the relief, enjoyment, therapy. And it's weird, therapy, but it has to be used because it is, and that's it. But I think, coming from where I come from, everybody thinks, oh, therapy, it's a heavy thing, isn't it? And it just isn't. It really
no.
This is what, again, this has come out of our beta groups, as you said, that they were all commenting on it was nothing like they thought it was going to be. It was, well, I'm going to say it was so much more, and it was fun. It really was fun, which actually surprised me, if I'm honest, because, again, this is a new thing that we're bringing to Staffordshire and to the Midlands area, and I've not had therapy. I don't know anything about psychotherapy. That's Jacci's field. I'm the horsey bit.
I've had lots of therapy.
Yeah. As has any psychotherapist. That's not just Jacci being
well, to be fair, it's not every psychotherapist. It's just transactional analysis in this country. We have to have 4 years of personal therapy while we're doing 4 years of training. A lot of counsellors and other therapists don't need to have their own personal therapy, but with transactional, no, it's not standard.
I thought that was for everybody.
A lot of counsellors haven't had any counselling at all. For us, we had to have 4 years of it as well. So I didn't think there was anything wrong with me until I started doing my training.
And then the truth came out.
And I was like, oh dear, yes, there is a lot to go on. So we'll finish up on
a horse.
Yeah, literally. So yeah, I'm very for therapy, but I think for some people, therapy in a therapy room can be a bit intense. It can be a bit too much for some people, which is why I think equine guided therapy and being outdoors with nature, or any alternative therapy, art therapy, do you know what I mean? For children, play therapy, there's lots of different ways that we can do this. And I think we're only just opening up and realizing that therapy doesn't need to be in a room with two people sat opposite each other, talking about their innermost secrets and, things that have happened to them in the past. It doesn't need to be like that.
Well, as I said, we discussed this again, like I say, going backwards a little bit. You, a long time ago, have been, what did we say? Did Rhea think about it the other day? It was about 4 years ago when you first sort of started, and I was a bit, I don't know. And it did take a trip to the States to see how it all happens over there and have a chat with them and everything else. And I came back, as you know, I was bouncing when I came back, and was like, wow, why on earth is this not happening more in this country? There is so much therapy going on in this country, so much needed in this country, and not available to people. And you just think, gosh, and it's so simple. There's so much that can be done to help everybody in such a simple way, just by giving them these little tools, and giving access is what we're trying to do, obviously, is giving it accessibility. So people can then explore it to whichever level they want to. It's the kind of base level, and then they can take it further if they want to. They can take it to whatever level they want to.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes it is just opening the door to something different. So we'll finish up here, Julie, and then we'll the next one, what I want to look at is the benefits of therapy outside the therapy room, which is kind of what we've just started to touch on now.
Oh, so I bet everybody, you can't wait for that one, can you?
Well, that's it. Same time next week.
This time next week, we'll see you there.
Okay, I'll speak to you soon.
All right, take care. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Healing with Horses. Please follow us on whatever platform you're currently listening on, and leave us a review.
And if you got value from this episode, please share it so that others get value from it too. You can connect with us on Facebook, Instagram and YouTube at Equine Guided Therapy.
Or you can visit our website, equineguidedtherapy.com, to book a session with us. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you all soon.